Fortunate thing for me is that, I've been nominated 3 times, but not too long ago. Well, a few years ago now, actually, about 10, 15 years ago. God, time flies.
Yeah, right.
My dad won finally, and he had been nominated 3 times, and he finally won. So now I have to.
Yeah.
So,
you're happy for Dad.
Yeah, I'm happy, but I'm like,
you want one
damn
too.
it, I can't. So.
Yeah. Hey everybody, it's me. It's another gorgeous summer day here in Southern California, and I am about to go make the most of it and do a hike in the hills. So excuse my attire for those of you who are watching this. But I wanted to jump on here and introduce this week's episode of Stories to Tell. My guest this week is Rufus Wainwright. Now, I've certainly been aware of Rufus's work over the decades he's been writing and performing, but it was really my wife Daisy who has talked almost incessantly about the concert she saw of Rufus years before we met, actually, years before I met Daisy. In the early days of our dating life, you know, you go through those conversations where you start asking each other, you know, about what are your favorite movies and what are your favorites, who are your favorite singers, what kind of music do you love? And at one point I asked her about concerts she'd seen. And she said it's a tie, actually, between George Michael in some big arena and Rufus Wainwright at a little club in Aspen called the Belly Up. And she said, and he did it, I think she said he was solo acoustic, which is something that I do all the time as a performer. And it intrigued me because I just didn't see that coming from Daisy. Her music taste is very eclectic, but she kept telling me over and over all these years, every time live performance would come up, she would say, oh, I remember that Rufus Wainwright concert. So I wanted to get in touch with him, and this is an episode where I had never met Rufus before, sitting down and sort of having an introductory conversation with someone where I'm finding out about him personally as well as for your enjoyment. And we had a pretty deep dive discussion about his career, his history, his family, all the projects he's got going on, and he's a very versatile talent. There are very few people, I think, in entertainment who are as versatile and as accomplished in so many different areas as Rufus Wainwright. So we get into a lot of that, and I hope you enjoy this episode with me and my guest this week, Rufus Wainwright. Now, don't forget, subscribe to Stories to tell your friends about it. But right now, just kick back and relax and watch this week's episode. All right, Rufus, cheers.
Cheers.
What a pleasure.
Thank you.
I'm so happy
Thanks
to meet
for having me. Yes,
finally.
Thank you.
I can't believe that we haven't run into each other at some point over the last 35 years.
Yeah. Well, I was in LA for a while, but then I left, went to New York.
Yeah.
And all.
Well, you've been everywhere.
Yeah.
By the way, I made, how is that? Because it's a virgin pina colada.
Yeah.
I took the rum. I'm going with just the rum.
Sweet. Very good. Very good.
When I sit and talk to people, especially if they're promoting something, which is really, this is a good vehicle for that sometimes, but it's really just a conversation and a hang. But usually when somebody is promoting something, they're promoting something, meaning a thing. And I realized when you were on your way in, you've got so much going on.
Yeah, no,
between a relatively new album that came out in January, right?
Yes,
Dream Requiem.
yeah.
This thing I'm dying to talk to you and get deep on,
which is called Opening Night, which is a musical based upon John Cassavetes' film.
Yes.
That's happening later in the year, correct?
Yeah, we're doing a concert of that in September. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But even just in talking right before the cameras rolled, and you were, you're taking June and July off, but you're dropping in here because they're doing this for you, and you're doing your opera.
They're doing
and
my opera Hadrian in Italy, and singing for the king.
So, first question:
Yes.
Is spinning all those plates fun, or does it ever get like, okay, I need to do one less thing?
Well, I have definitely, this June and July coming up, or we're in it now, I guess, was my first ever conscious decision to cut back on my work. Because really, but if you looked at the schedule, that I just went through, it's pretty insane what I've done over the last few years.
And you recently just toured in Spain.
Yeah, I was in Spain, and I did. And for instance, there's another album that I did, which is all Kurt Weill songs, and that's coming out at some point.
Of course.
But
how's that cure for cancer coming?
Well, I'm going to beat AI.
Yeah, okay.
I'm that fast. But anyways, but this was the first time ever that I've said, look, I'm going to try and do nothing for June and July, and we're attempting. I still had to do a couple of things, like as I said, they're doing my opera Hadrian in Spoleto at the Spoleto Festival, and I'm also singing for King Charles.
Do you have a background with him or no?
I've sung for him a couple of times. I don't know him personally very well, but I've met him a couple of times.
For instance, how did that request to sing for the king come about?
Well, it's for this thing, the Royal Drawing Academy, which is a charity that he has, I think, to help people in underprivileged areas do art. And they have a little exhibit. They're going to actually exhibit some of my drawings because I started drawing again. I went to art school originally many years ago, but I started drawing during COVID again. And so they're going to exhibit them there. And it has, a lot of patrons like Cindy Sherman, who's a great artist, and other people who just, hang out and, do good, but also hang out in the palace.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like it's going to be really lovely.
Yeah,
And,
it sounds fun.
Yeah.
My wife, Daisy, who I mentioned, she saw you live shortly before I met her. I met her 12 years ago, so I'm going to guess this would have been like 2012-ish.
Yes.
We go to Aspen a lot, and she's a longtime lover of Aspen.
Yeah.
We got married in Aspen,
wonderful.
actually. And there's a really cool club there called the Belly Up.
Yeah.
And I've seen a few people there, but Daisy went to see you doing a solo acoustic show there, which is brave in itself, by the way, because as someone who does a lot of solo acoustic shows, I rule out clubs.
Yeah.
I will only play theaters.
Yeah.
I don't feel confident enough that they're going to hold their attention in a club with that much, imbibing and stuff.
Yeah.
But I mention it because Daisy, from the minute I met her and we started to really do a deep dive into what music we love, she mentioned you and seeing that show, and she said, I think it's in the top 3 shows I've ever seen. She lists George Michael way up high, but she said, Rufus Wainwright at the Belly Up, solo acoustic. She goes, he was so funny and so engaging, and I fell in love with him, and I loved the songs, and and so I mentioned her and her love for you also because if she finds out, like if she comes through here and she finds out that you're going to go sing for the king, she's going to probably want to go with you. She's obsessed with anything royal.
Yeah.
I could kind of like, I have no hate for it, but I don't care.
Yeah.
She is obsessed. She was like, I was born in the wrong time. I should have been,
in that circuit. I was brought up in Canada. Yeah. So I'm technically a subject of the king.
Yes, you are.
So it's, I'm just, living my life in the empire. But in terms of Aspen, I love that club, the Belly Up.
You've played it many times.
Many times. Yeah, we usually go there because then we get to, kind of just offset some of the costs of that wonderful town, which is where you get a little lost in terms of luxury experiences. So
so do you play there sometimes just because you love to hang in Aspen?
Yeah.
Oh, what a great idea. I do the same thing.
Yeah,
If I want to go to Hawaii or something, I call my agent and I go,
gig.
give me a gig. You'll pay for the trip.
I just did that in Hawaii. I was in Hawaii for last week and I got a gig. They have these very nice house concerts in Hawaii that people do.
Oh yeah.
Where they just give you the whole door.
Right.
And it's it's a nice little chunk of change just and someone's home and
right.
And so they're very attentive.
There's a gorgeous theater, a small theater on Maui too. That's a performing arts center that I've played a couple of times. That's
nice,
absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. No, Hawaii, Aspen, St. James Palace. No,
this sounds like wow. This sounds like a brutal.
What a lame life.
Yeah. You and I have something in common, which is that we both come from musical families.
Yes.
You even more so. My mom was a great singer, started as a big band singer, and then when she met my father, he had been a jazz pianist, but he was starting his own jingle company in Chicago, where I grew up. So my dad wrote and arranged and produced countless big TV commercials that were, in the 60s and 70s and even 80s, they were as big a part of pop culture as hit songs.
Wow, amazing.
Except they were 30 seconds long. And I grew up watching my parents make music. Or, my dad created music. My mom sang on all the jingles. I ended up singing on a bunch of jingles when I was a kid. And so I wonder, I know quite a bit about your parents and their careers, but I wonder because I don't consciously remember deciding to be in music. It was just sort of like, I wasn't pushed into it, and I bet you weren't either.
No.
But it was just like, this is just what we all do.
Yeah, I mean, look, my mother and my aunt, the McGarrigle sisters, my mother was Kate, my aunt is Anna, she's still around, but sadly, Kate passed away a few years ago. Mm-hmm. But they were, I guess, the first generation of musicians in their family, though everybody sang at home for, probably 100 years and all of that. But they never knew actually that it was a possibility in terms of being a career. Like they just were hanging out in the 60s with the cool people who were playing folk music and going to festivals and, following Bob Dylan. And then next thing you know, they got a record deal and then boom, that was what they were doing. So they didn't consciously do it either.
Right.
But it just happened to them. And so I think with us, my sister and I, Martha, we were brought up in a musical family, and I assumed that everybody knew that I was going to go in that direction because I was insufferable as a child.
Insufferable meaning like
just always performing, always wanting to be in
attention?
the spotlight, always playing the piano, always demanding the spotlight and so forth. So it was. I never thought of any other way to do it, but it's just funny because I think with my mother too, she never thought of any other way too either because she never thought it was a possibility.
Right.
It just sort of happened.
Especially from where you guys come from, right?
Yeah, from Quebec, from Montreal.
Yeah, where it's not as, maybe back then especially, it wasn't as common to launch a career in show business.
Yeah, and it was, it was my mom, Kate, she started, just going to folk festivals and the next thing you know, Linda Ronstadt wanted to sing Heart Like a Wheel, and then it was just sort of this whole big journey. And both my mom and my aunt didn't continue. They made a few amazing records on Warner Brothers, and then they kind of retreated back to Canada, and because they wanted to bring up their kids and stuff. And they still made other great records and stuff, but they didn't want to kind of chase that carrot too much. So
how old?
That was for me to do.
Right, which was like no question from the time you were. Kind of like me, like where we just, this is what we are.
Yes.
How old were you when you left Canada, and where did you go first? You went to New York first, right?
I was born in New York. I was born in upstate New York, but then my parents divorced when I was about 3. My sister was just born, and then we moved to Canada then. Then years later, I went to boarding school in upstate New York and for high school, at the Millbrook School. So I was there for about 4 years, and then I went back to Canada to go to McGill the university for 2 seconds, and also to Concordia. And then finally, I had a few kind of stalled attempts And where I'd go down to New York and I'd try to play clubs and do gigs, and it just did not work at all.
This is pre-record deal?
Yeah, pre-record deal. Because what I was doing, I was this sort of dandyish, opera-loving, gay piano player, and at that time, in Manhattan, it was all about Jeff Buckley and more guitar-based rock and roll, or like grungy kind of stuff. So nobody knew how to read me, and so I really failed actually, and went back to Montreal, and but decided to just play up there and kind of created a little buzz, and then I was signed by DreamWorks, which at the time was a huge deal when they started that company, the record company, and was flown out here and then made my first record, and it all it made sense.
Who was it at DreamWorks?
It was at Lenny Walker.
Oh yeah.
He had actually signed my mother in the 70s.
Wow.
To Warner Brothers. So
yeah,
it was,
for those watching, Lenny Walker was like one of those people, kind of he never chased the limelight like Clive Davis, but he was a Clive Davis-esque.
Yeah, he was.
Except he was a way more hands-on producer.
Oh yeah, no, he loved to be
musician.
In the studio.
Yeah,
and he. It was really him and Mo Austin.
Right.
Mo Austin and him were the ones who signed me. In fact, when I flew out for the first time, they had no headquarters yet, and I guess David Geffen had lent them the attic of Geffen Records, and there was this tiny little attic when it used to be on Sunset, and there was just like two offices, and there was Mo Austin and Lenny Walker and me, and and the three of us would hang out for ages just because there was nobody else.
So
in
this
the
is the
company.
embryonic days of DreamWorks.
Yeah, the very beginning. I was the first artist signed on the label. To be completely correct, I was actually the second artist, but the first artist was George Michael, because he was saved from Sony because of all that had happened.
Right.
So they actually signed two gay male artists right off the bat, which was interesting.
Speaking of that, from my recollection and what I know, or what I think I know, I think you were really the first openly gay male artist who wasn't outed or...
There was one before me who was this guy called Jabriath, who was signed to, I think he was signed to like Capitol Records or something, a huge thing in the 70s. And it was around the time of David Bowie. And he came out and he was signed but it was kind of, they tried to capitalize it on as like a glam rock, like they turned him into sort of a alien or something. And his homosexuality was sort of part of this, weird glam rock thing. And he made a couple of amazing albums, but then it didn't work out, and then they dropped him, and I think he died kind of a tragic death, and so forth. But he was technically the first, but they tried to use it as a gimmick. But I was the first one to actually just be like, no, this is who I am.
You just happened to be.
Yeah, I happened to be.
It had nothing. It wasn't like a talking point or a promotion point.
We tried a little bit, but oddly enough, gay audiences didn't really latch onto me as much as young girls. Yeah. Well, and the girls knew that I was gay, and they kind of liked that.
Right. But the same way that some guys who were not maybe openly gay, but were, we like the inside word was that they were gay.
Yeah.
You were a handsome motherfucker. Still are, but like when you first hit the scene, it was like you looked like a male model. So I love that. That was just sort of like you were being idol-y looking, and sexually
honest,
without hitting anything over the head.
And I was told a couple of times to maybe tone it down, or to be, maybe you could say you're bisexual or something, and I just was like, I'm just here to make music.
Right.
That's all I care about, really. Yeah. And so I didn't really have the bandwidth to, kind of create some sort of, I don't know, context or whatever. And so I just focused on the music. So.
Did you have not so much a game. Did you have, from the early days, did you picture a path that included momentous accomplishments? Did you have a list of things you wanted to accomplish?
Yeah.
Did you sort of draw a map, or did you just go with whatever?
I mean, I think any kind of step that I took, whether it was, creating like a set list for my early shows or then later, putting a band together and then, writing a musical, like whatever that step was, I just was so laser focused on it in terms of it being of what I felt was the highest quality. And so it was really more like block by block. I mean, but I do think that there was a kind of strange, kind of long-term, long-range goal that was sort of drawing me, beckoning to me. I'm not sure what it was exactly. Sometimes I do. It's funny because, and I think that's probably the same with a lot of artists. That's why kind of when you win a Grammy which I haven't yet actually, but I've been nominated a few times or something. Mm-hmm. It is very emotional because at least you don't really know what's pulling you to wherever and for all your life. And if somebody says, oh, here's like the Grammy for, best artist or something, you're like, okay, I guess this is what it was. And there's sort of a relief to it. But yeah, so, but it is about, I mean, I remember hearing recently like an interview with Patti Smith where somebody said, like, if a young artist comes to you and asks you what they should do or what their plan should be, what would you say to them? And she's always just focus on the work. Yeah. Focus on the work. That's all you focus on. Yeah. Nothing else. Yeah. Nothing else at all. Yeah. And I strongly believe in that.
I think that there's something, I think that there can be a combination of, I'm a huge believer in manifestation and the what I consider to be the fact that the quality of your thoughts and thinking is directly related to the quality of your life and your pursuits and your results. Mm-hmm. It's funny you mentioned the Grammy because I was nominated a couple times, and I don't know hardly anybody who got into music who would be like, I don't want to win a Grammy. Everybody, there's something about it. And when I did win one in 2004, I wrote a song with Luther Vandross, won Song of the Year. And it's sitting over there. Okay. And I'm very proud to have it. But you know what I do every New Year's Eve? Whoever's over here, we drink tequila shots out of it.
Oh, that's good.
Because I feel like there also has to be a sort of like, it's a piece of metal and it's nice. And it doesn't mean that the other 4 songs that year weren't amazing songs.
Well, the unfortunate thing for me is that, I've been nominated 3 times, but not too long ago. Well, a few years ago now, actually, about 10, 15 years ago. God, time flies. Yeah, my dad won finally, and he had been nominated 3 times, and he finally won. So now I have to. Yeah.
So, you're happy for Dad.
Yeah, I'm happy, but I'm like,
you want one too.
I can't. So.
Yeah. Well, at the rate that you're going and the prolific way you carry on, I can't imagine.
We'll see.
Speaking of, let's dive into this a little bit because you have this album out that came out, Dream Requiem. Tell me about that and what the basis was, what was the inspiration for it, and then I really want to talk about opening night.
Well, Dream Requiem, it's a requiem mass, a traditional requiem mass. Think Mozart's Requiem, Verdi's Requiem, but it's probably more like Benjamin Britten's Requiem because he also incorporated poetry into it and into his work, and my Requiem, as well as having the Latin text that's sung by the choir and also a soprano soloist. And there's also a poem that weaves in and out of it called Darkness by Lord Byron, which I discovered a few years ago and became obsessed with. And
sorry, the poem circa what year?
Yes, the poem was written in 1816, and it pertains to an event that happened in 1814 where there was this massive volcano that erupted in Southeast Asia somewhere and basically made it so that most of the world was completely seasonless for a year. So it was like a year-long winter
Wow.
occurred, especially in Europe. And nobody knew what was happening. So a lot of people thought it was the end of the world. And for instance, it was the year that Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein. So it has this sort of, Gothic quality. And Byron wrote this poem, Darkness, which is about the apocalypse and about, just everything, nature collapsing and at the end, the universe just sort of takes over. And so, needless to say, unfortunately, there's a lot one can relate to today in the poem that back then was just kind of conjecture. Now it feels actually more, present. And
do you mean that like
it really
not just politically, but environmentally?
Mostly about environmental stuff.
Yeah.
It talks about forest burning, about people eating each other. It's
and not in a good way.
Yeah, it's like very brutal. Yeah, not in a good way. Well, in a good way if you're one of them that's gonna live. But it's very bleak. And
and that's a thread throughout.
And that's thread through the Requiem piece. And we have we recorded it. We recorded the premiere in Paris with the L'Orchestre Radio France, and the narrator, and so that's the narrator who does the poem, and the narrator in Paris was Meryl Streep. So she graced us.
Couldn't get anybody good.
Yeah. And then we did it here at Disney Hall, and that is available on Warner Classics.
How was that? Disney Hall is just such a beautiful.
Yeah, and then we did it at Disney Hall with Jane Fonda as
nice.
the narrator, and then we're doing it with Isabelle Huppert in Germany. So that's going all around, and that is how that came about. I'm not quite sure. I have I've composed several classical works now. I've done 2 operas and some other things. And I think what happened is that during the pandemic, a friend of mine, Arthur Pita, who's a choreographer in London, he did a dance to this Agnus Dei that I composed or wrote, that I sang for one of my albums. It was sort of like a Latin piece. And he just sort of off the cuff said, "Oh, well, Rufus, why don't you should do the whole mass, why not?" Needless to say, all my tours were canceled. Who knew what the world was going, going through. And so
you decided, rather than learn to bake bread.
Yeah. I'm gonna write
like everybody else.
Yeah. you bake bread.
Yeah.
I'll compose masterpieces. I just put my feelers out, as well as my classical publisher, Jill Graham, and they said, "What are your thoughts on the Wainwright Requiem?" And suddenly we had, 6 orchestras that were clamoring for it.
Okay, can we nerd out just for a second?
Yeah.
Because I'm really fascinated about this. So when you sit down to start composing something like that, first of all, was it, this is the idea, this is I have my pursuit?
Yeah.
Or was it just that you were just feeling a sense of writing something that felt classical, and then it led to that?
Yeah, I mean, the poem had been kicking around for a while. I've always loved Requiem masses. I mean, my whole love of opera began with Verdi's Requiem when I first heard that when I was 13. So that had always stayed with me. And also, I have to say, the other thing that really drew me to it was the Latin. And I was not mistaken when I started to compose the piece, and just the music started pouring out with that language, because it's so embedded in our society, in our world, and in our minds. And so it's I mean, I'm not a religious person per se, but it, there's a lot,
But you felt
there's certainly been religious people in my family, 100 years ago. And so it's all kind of, there's just a stream that I kind of could tap into with the Latin, and the music just sort of erupted from
right.
that.
But the nerdy part of me wants to know.
Yeah.
So do you you compose at the piano?
Yeah, no, what happens, I compose melodies into the piano and ideas, and then I go to a computer, and I do the whole Sibelius sound thing.
So you don't bring an orchestrator and you do it?
No, I do. I would only do it if I could do it. I mean, I do have an assistant who's perhaps, they're usually like a young graduate from Yale or something, and they know more. They know like more, mostly to do with time signatures and like, can an instrument really play this?
Right.
But in terms of every single note, I'm there, putting them in and playing them, and often singing them. Actually, I'll often sing the parts, and but I wouldn't really be able to do it. I mean, I could do it if I went back to music school and did everything, but without the computer, I wouldn't be able to do it. But
so you're not writing it out.
I'm not writing it
staff
by hand.
paper.
Yeah, I mean, I could too, but it's not. Look, I have a whole pop career
Exactly
that I've done in the meantime.
Yeah,
so
exactly. I'm stunned by how prolific you are, and in such a diverse, number of ways.
Yeah, no,
but I think that must be what kind of fuels you to. Yeah. Do you ever chill the fuck out? Truly? Do you ever?
Well, I mean, I think one thing that people are struck by when they meet me, when I'm relaxed at home, is in fact how exhausted and sort of lazy I am. I'm often in my bathrobe. I'm often, lying on the couch, and I'm kind of, I have a terrible, memory, I don't remember things, names or anything. So I'm a little bit spaced out all the time. And you can even see me as a kid, like I'm always sort of like staring up into the space, but it is. And I do think a lot of the time I am just recovering from all the
because
things
when
that
you're
I do.
Invested in a project like that, it's 24/7 for you, right?
Yeah. But it is, it's amazing what the human mind can accomplish if they really focus on it. I mean, my first opera that I composed, Prima Donna, I just made the decision, because I think at that time I was very, very busy, and I was like, I don't know if I have the time to do this. I said, well, look, I'm just going to work on it for 1 hour a day. And I wrote it, like that. There was times where I had to, really dig in and stuff. But you can actually, people can do amazing things if they really apply.
I also feel, correct me if I'm wrong, that you have throughout your life, because when you mention, Meryl Streep voicing and Jane Fonda, Disney Hall, it seems that you have throughout your life connected with an array of very prominent, talented people.
Yes.
Not just celebrities and famous people, but people within our industry who can get things done.
Yeah.
Would you say that part of what motivates you to come up with new projects and work on projects is thinking, I can get this done. It's not going to just sit in a drawer. It's like I can make a few calls and I mean, I think if you're really going to take the deep dive, I think part of it is also where I came from, in the sense that, and I'm talking about Canada and Montreal specifically, where there is a very kind of bohemian, lackadaisical, but romantic kind of atmosphere, where there are a lot of big dreams and a lot of fascinating talents and stuff, and things do come out of there, like Leonard Cohen or Robert Lepage and people like that. But it's all incredibly ephemeral, and I think part of me maybe was kind of becoming a bit more like my dad, who was from New York, Loudon, and who was more of that Protestant work ethic thing. And so I think I felt like I had to bust out of that bubble of just sitting around, and so there was fighting your hometown a little bit, and then also I don't know. I mean, there's just, I would think that's. I mean, I know. For myself, if I feel like a project that I'm passionate about, I don't know that I have the connections, or at least in my mind, the way to facilitate it, a way to launch it. It's going to probably make me a little less passionate about attacking it.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing that's very important in the classical world, is that you do need commissioners. Like
Yeah.
I would never write an opera or a requiem without
and Broadway as well,
without
right?
yeah, or with someone on the other side saying,
Right.
this is your deadline.
Right.
You have to deliver this. So yes, that is actually probably the main way to do it. Is
Yeah.
you sign some sort of crazy agreement and you have to do it.
Right.
You have no choice.
How did tell me all about opening night, because,
Yes.
well, I'll let you
Yeah.
describe what it is, because I'm just as a fan, I'm so excited about it, and I can't wait to
Yeah.
experience it, because it
Yeah.
really sounds unique.
Yeah,
and-
well, look, it's had a very, how can I say this? Had a bit of a checkered past in the sense that, I've been a Cassavetes fan for many, many years, and especially that movie Opening Night. And to get into the, one of the, if you're going to get spooky about it, there was this thing where the director Ivo van Hove, he's a well-known Belgian director. We wanted to do a project together for many, many years, and we would sort of throw ideas across the bow for a long time and see what made sense, and we weren't getting anywhere, but we did want to do something. So I, at one point, and he would just send me these little notes occasionally, like, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And but I kind of hit this depression at one point. It was the first time that I had ever been in like a major depression. It's something, it runs in my family, and and so I'd hit it, and I was just dealing with that, and at one point I was in Australia, and I needed to just put one foot in front of the other, and I had a gig that night, and I was just in a very bad place, and I literally got on my knees and just said, give me a sign, send me something just to help me through today. It was just one of those things. And all of a sudden this vision of the movie Opening Night appeared, and it was Jenna Rollins, with the blonde hair and in the pea coat and stuff. And I was like, okay, I'll just focus.
That was the sign.
Yeah, and I just focused on her performance in that movie as just, I don't know, I just related, it just came to me in this strange...
Did you just immediately go and find the movie?
No, I just thought, I knew the movie, I didn't need to watch it again. I'd seen it many, many times, and I just sort of thought of Jenna Rollins. Maybe I was relating to her, in the movie or something, like it was and her strength of getting through that. Anyways, and then I got back to America, and I checked my email, and Ivo just wrote, what do you think of Opening Night as a musical?
Holy
yeah.
shit.
From Europe or whatever.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, I guess that's it. And so we agreed to do that, and then we got a producer pretty fast in London, and look, the majority of the experience was amazing. In fact, writing the songs was incredible, and I'm very proud of the music, and I'm very proud of parts of the production. There were most of the production I'm proud of. There was some, when we got down to the finish line, it was obvious that there were certain things that weren't working just theatrically, and that we weren't necessarily in the right theater, and London's tough, Well, Broadway is tough. All of those places are tough. So so it premiered. It got 4-star reviews from various things, but the rest of the public and the press really attacked it in a big way, and it didn't, it wasn't the success that we'd hoped for in London. And I was completely crestfallen, and then thrown into yet another depression, which was kind of interesting. So that was a tough period, and then but we knew that the songs were great and that the performances were great, and so we did record several of the performances, and we've made an album of the best of the 3 nights that we had, and I will say the greatest kind of little cherry on top of this story to put is that on the last night, I was my sister Martha. She's very good friends with Pete Townsend from The Who, and he he had been reading a lot of the press, about it, and he sent me an email. He said, Rufus, this sounds like something that I would love, like, kind of really, it sounds really interesting. So on the last night, I got Pete Townsend some tickets, him and his wonderful wife Rachel, and I was completely destroyed, just to see your show, and everybody was, the actors and everybody. So
because it was at the end of the run, you knew it was over.
Yeah, and it was up for 2 or 3 months, so it wasn't like it was closing right away, but it was just whatever. So, but it was a sad night, and Pete Townsend was there. He just was obsessed with the show. He said, "This is one of the greatest things I've ever seen," and he was being very sincere. I could tell. And then right at the end. And as we were leaving, and everybody was leaving the theater, he he said something like, he turned to the audience and he was like, "Fuck the press, fuck the press. This is like," he just started like yelling, "Fuck you" to the audience, and he did sort of this amazing.
And did the audience chime in?
Yeah. And so I had Pete Townsend, as a sort of as my cheerleader at the end. So we are. Cut to this September on the 15th, I believe. We're going to do a concert at Town Hall in New York with an incredible cast of people like Sarah Bareilles, Darren Criss, Patty Lapone, and
no Pete.
No, Pete. No. He's working like a madman on his own projects still. So yeah, we're gonna do that, and we're gonna just do an evening. It's gonna be a fundraiser for the ACLU, and at Town Hall, and I'm gonna sing in it as well. So we're gonna do all the songs from opening night.
And did you do some songs on this last tour?
Yeah, I would do little things here occasionally. Yeah,
I saw a clip. I feel bad. I don't remember what the song was. I could look it up, but I was scrolling through your Instagram, and you were performing a song from it. Live, and I was. It wasn't just that I was blown away. I was reminded. I think that you're a very underrated singer. I think you're an incredible singer.
I still have to say this is another moment here of feeling a little bit, I wouldn't say bitter, but perhaps a little overlooked. Is that when they had that whole, whatever was it, like the 100 greatest singers?
Yeah.
In Rolling Stone, remember? And there was a thing because they didn't put Celine Dion in it.
Yeah,
it was something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was even like 200 or something.
Yeah.
It was like a crazy amount. And I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I've done like Judy Garland concerts, and I've sung operas, it's just like,
that's not the criteria.
Hold on a second here.
That's not the criteria.
Whatever. So yes, I do think occasionally
this is the same
singer,
publication, by the way, who in the 80s, when I first was breaking, there was a year, like after my second album, I think, or something, they used to do, maybe they still do, but they used to do these, every year they would do a critics poll and a readers poll, and they would publish the results from both in the same magazine, in the same issue. And I, in one year, was voted worst male singer by the critics of Rolling Stone, and best male singer by the readers of Rolling Stone. Wow. And I remember looking at that, and I was 25, 26 or something like that. Could have easily really, like at first, it wasn't so much it hurt me, it just pissed me off. Because it was like, okay, look, if you don't dig what I do, that's fine. But it's like when people, I won't name names, but there are artists who have had incredible success who became punching bags. Yeah. I've certainly experienced my share of that.
No, totally.
Where whether it's a genre that the critics don't like, or it's too syrupy, or it's too romantic, or whatever it is.
Right.
I totally get it. You don't dig it. You don't dig it. But I remember thinking, no, that's technically wrong.
Yeah.
Because I'm a really good singer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
totally.
And it's sort of like, so I don't, if in my 20s I kind of gave up. So fuck Rolling Stone. But yeah, man, and you've only gotten better and better from what I hear. It's just
Well, incredible. That's another operatic lesson that I learned is that for all the great opera singers, they sing the big roles in their 50s, late 40s, 50s. You can't sing Otello and or Brunhilde or whatever until you're
Right.
you're a certain age. And so I haven't trained like that, obviously, but I do think I have that idea in the back of my mind.
I haven't done. I've only done a tiny little bit of training, only in the last year or two. Because Kenny Loggins, who's a really dear friend of mine, he was really. He's one of my favorite singers of all time.
Yeah, he's amazing.
I've known him forever, but he was really struggling with his voice as he was getting older, and he had decided, because he reached a point on tour where he was like, "I'm going to just retire because I can't hit a G anymore." That used to be like a walk in the park.
Yeah.
And then he was turned on to this coach, and he started working with the coach, and he improved his voice dramatically over a year of training. And he said to me, "Look, I know you don't need this right now because you're fine, but in terms of preservation, and because you're a lot younger than me," which I remind him of. He said, "Maybe you should sit with this guy, Ken." His name is Ken Stacy, and he lives near here. So I'd never taken a voice lesson or anything like that.
Yeah.
So he came over here, and we did an hour and a half, and basically it was like not trying to change anything about the way I sing, but like basically a guy saying to me, what if any are your challenges when you're on stage? Are there any notes that you are like, that song's coming up, and I know that, because let's attack those so that there's no thought of that anymore.
Yeah.
And the first thing, which I kind of knew, I felt like an idiot when he had to tell me, but it relates to opera.
Yeah.
Which is that pop and rock singers, historically, when we go for a high note, we do this.
Yeah.
And every opera singer who's singing notes way above us has their head down, because it just creates this cavity.
Yeah.
So he was immediately like, "Okay, well, maybe first put your head down and open your mouth way wider."
That I try to do.
Yeah.
And there's years and years when I'm like this all the time.
Yeah.
But I have tried to focus on.
It just looks cooler too.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you this question because I know it could go any direction, but if you went to sleep tonight and you could wake up tomorrow morning and spend a year in another era, what would it be? Or a year?
A year. I would have to say, I don't know. I think of Greece, whatever year that was, because I think it was only about a year anyways, where it was this amazing golden age, of civility and sex and and debate and stuff and build. So I think I would just go for that.
Nice.
The golden era, whatever that was.
Yeah.
Sit down with Socrates. And
Plus the clothes were really cool.
Yeah.
Right? The debauchery.
Yeah. I think it was debauchery, but I think it was there were rules and stuff. And I just remember reading this. There was this. I'm not an atheist by any means. Though I'm not religious. I guess what you call it, an agnostic.
I'm an agnostic atheist.
Yeah. Okay.
Because even the people who are diehard believers, I remind them that they're agnostic believers.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. So, but there is this book called it's called The Atheist Manifesto, which I read years ago, which was kind of a great book, but it basically states that right before Christ. I guess it was Constantinople that became Christian, that really kind of did the deed, and for the empire, the Roman Empire, they had identified the atom.
Yeah,
they had identified the atom, and and then it was like 2,000 years of darkness. So I think that there's an argument that we were really on the cusp of something before all of this occurred.
I agree. You mentioned Leonard Cohen.
Yes.
And I'm fascinated to know, I don't know the backstory of how he not only entered your life, or you entered his, or vice, or both, but to begin a relationship with him that culminates in him actually being family.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Well, it's an interesting story because we're all from Montreal. I didn't know him there at all, and my mother didn't know him either.
Oh, your parents?
No, they weren't. They weren't friends.
Okay.
He was really he was in another kind of band of crazies, and he was also a little older. I was about 10 years older than my mother. So, but he was more in the literary poetry scene in Montreal. So it was different. But when I came to Los Angeles, we all loved his music and knew how great he was and so forth.
And he was considered, even when you were growing up, he was considered a Canadian treasure.
Yes,
already, right?
yes, very much so. And so we all admired him. But then I moved to LA to make my first album, and I befriended his daughter, Lorca. And we just became very close.
So how'd you meet her?
I met her through friends, and I met her through my friend Melissa Oftermauer, who at the time was the bass player in Hole.
Oh yeah.
so it was in that kind of in that orbit, and we just immediately got on and became incredibly close, and there was and for years, I think, because we just had this sort of silly idea, like, wouldn't it be kind of fun to have a baby someday? Like, it was always very light and sort of unfocused.
So this is long before you met your husband.
Yeah, long before, many years before. I mean, but it wasn't like a concrete plan or anything.
Gotcha.
But then time passed, and I met my husband Jorn, and we were together for a few years, and then my mother got sick, and also Leonard lost all his money at one point because of that thing with his manager, and then suddenly Lorca was like, I want to do this now, and it just, I think it was the right amount of crazy was occurring in my life. My mother was dying, and I don't know, really my mother was dying, which is like the biggest thing in my life. She was the most important part.
Was she ill for a long time?
About 3 years. Yeah, 3 years. So it all intersected at that point, and next thing you know, we have this amazing daughter, Viva, and
who's how old?
She's now 14. Yeah. So
how's that?
That's look, it's amazing, but it's also horrifying. It's the gamut. It runs the gamut, as they say. But in terms of Leonard, what's interesting is that, I kind of knew his music. I didn't really know it very well. I didn't know anything, mainly because I was mostly into opera. Like, I really only listened to opera. So I'm kind of annoying in that way. But but in a strange way with Leonard, I think it was an advantage, because he never felt like I was trying to, hook into him, or trying to get something from him. Like, I just sort of was this other musician. And then when I made my first album, there was one story that I like to tell where Lorca informed me that there was one song, it was called Sally Ann, that I wrote, and it's actually about Montreal, that for one day, Leonard played all day on his record player,
just
or whatever,
over and
over and over. So the thought of Leonard kind of dissecting one of my songs that intensely for one day is a great sort of privilege and honor, and then we had just some really great back and forth. He was so impressed when I wrote my first opera, which was very touching. My dad, who I adore, I love my dad, Loudon, but he despises opera with a kind of a real passion. He's and he's never gotten my opera thing, really.
But he appreciates
it, though. It's taken a while. He didn't always appreciate it. He was actually pretty negative about it for quite a long time. But
like, what the fuck are you wasting your time with this for?
Yeah, it's just like, I don't get it. Like, why are you doing that?
Right.
Why are you bringing me here? Right. Kind of thing, like. But he has improved a lot, and he's tried really hard, and he's had some operatic experiences. He loves Nessun Dorma and stuff like that. But when my first opera was composed, Leonard came to me and he said, "This is amazing what you're doing. This is," because I think he also recognizes something that he could never do. Something that was outside of his realm, which I think excited him. So we had some really great moments, but it wasn't a ton. Like, you didn't really. unless you were female and attractive, you didn't really hang out with him a lot.
Right. Gotcha. You mentioned Nessun Dorma, and I wonder, I'm curious, you be honest, I know you will. So I don't know if you're aware, there's a song from the 80s, late 80s, I think, written by Roy Orbison, one of the last songs he co-wrote with Jeff Lynne. You know, Jeff Lynne did the last couple of, and then the Wilburys. And And there's a song that Roy and Jeff Lynne wrote called A Love So Beautiful. Do you know that song?
I don't know that song.
What they did is they took the melody of the bridge of Nessun Dorma and made it. There's no real chorus, you know. Certain songs don't have a chorus; they just have a verse that ends with a hook, kind of. Yeah. And the opening is the summer sun went down on our love long ago. The same old afterglow. And I'm curious. Maybe when we wrap, I'll send it to you.
Yes.
Because I'm really curious as someone who not just loves opera, but has such a respect for it. I'm curious if you go, oh, that's cool, or what the fuck is this bullshit?
I'll probably love it because I'm a big fan of Roy Orbison.
Yeah.
No matter what he does, he could sing, you know, the phone book.
Same. One of the things that I'm so also fascinated about with your career and your art is I find it unique when a songwriter, an accomplished songwriter, who's known primarily for writing by himself, covers so much other material, and also co-writes. I mean, you co-wrote a lot of Opening Night, right? Or did you write?
No, I wrote all that myself.
You did?
Yeah, no, I wrote all that myself.
Correct.
I mean, I've been writing, I co-wrote some of it. I mean, I've started co-writing more of late, mainly because I've been thinking it'd be nice to write a pop song, you know, just because as much as I adore opera, I feel a great kind of admiration for people who love pop and who really know how that works, you know, and I think it's equally as, you know, passionate and stuff. So I have ventured into that territory just for fun, like when I worked with Carly Rae Jepsen, people like that. And
do you listen to pop music much?
Oh, I try. No, I do.
Try meaning like you think I'll put on hits one, but then you don't actually.
It's not a question of it's good or bad or it's this or that.
No, of course not.
It's just I'm so behind. You know, I'm just getting into, you know, Stravinsky at this point. So
yeah.
So it's sort of so I'm just really slow with that. But I have to say though, I mean, the one that's really getting me these days, who I have been listening to a lot of, and I saw her recently when she did one of the fire benefits for LA. I'm totally obsessed with Stevie Nicks.
Oh yeah.
Just because I don't know. They did that. Yeah, it was one of the John Mayer.
Rod Stewart.
Yeah, everybody was doing that, and she just wiped the stage clean when she came out, and just the way she sang and her attitude, and then the other day I was driving along and I in Hawaii actually, we had the top down because we had a convertible, and I was blaring you know, just like a white winged dove. And it was I don't know. So I'm yeah.
I mean, she's just so gifted, but so iconic.
Yeah.
I had this crazy experience a couple years ago. Maybe it was right after the pandemic, I guess. So maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So she's a big animal rights person, as am I and my wife.
Yes.
And we're friendly with a woman who runs a great animal hospital in Malibu, but she's also really connected to some great animal protection and animal rights organizations. And she reached out to me and she said, we've done this documentary, and I hate to ask, but is there any way, would you consider writing a song at the end of this thing? And I was like, of course, you know, no problem. And so I said, but I don't know that it's something that I would sing. Is there somebody, you know? And she said, well, you know, I'm friendly with Stevie Nicks. And so I said, well, great. But why wouldn't you have her write it? And she goes, well, she said she'd maybe be open to being involved, but she's too busy.
Yeah.
And I said, you were maybe going to write. She goes, oh, we'll have Richard, if I like it. And
Yeah.
so I do this demo, and I deliberately wrote it in a key that I thought was good for her. And I went in and did this demo, I just played piano and put some strings and did a vocal and sent it off. And the next thing I hear is Stevie loves the song, but she's, quote, she loves your vocals so much that she just wants to sing all the background vocals around it.
Really?
So I get back, and she goes into the studio with her
Oh
guy.
my God.
And I get back this mix of Stevie singing all these parts that she came up. She did this vocal arrangement around,
Wow.
which was like so breathtaking. But at the same time, it was like, I wouldn't have sung. I wouldn't have sung it in this key because it's so high for me. So there was a little bittersweet about it. But
Wow.
and I toured with her years ago. I toured with her in London and in Scandinavia. And she's just one of those. She's one of those few legends left.
Yeah.
And who still really brings it.
Yeah, and there's an animalistic quality about her. Speaking
Do you
of
know her?
animals, I've never met her, but I will.
She's super cool.
Super
cool.
Yeah, no, I will.
Do you find as a writer, because you mentioned depression, I've had my battles with it. Do you subscribe to the belief that in order to write really great songs, you have to be suffering, or no?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you have to be, but it is slightly disconcerting how, the payoff that occurs in your depressive state, and both the performances that you give and some of the music you write. It's a definite byproduct of that. And there have been times, actually that's probably something more that I struggle with now, is just this concept of like, oh my God, you get depressed, you write a great song, and then you feel better, but then you got to get depressed again to write the great.
So you manufacture it, you think?
Well, I don't manufacture it, but I definitely.
But do you?
I don't think I manufacture it, but there's a cyclical kind of rotation that like the grinding wheel that does that I've just started to really identify that pattern, I guess is the best way to put it, and it's not and it has nothing to do with you as a person. That's
right.
It is and what you need to do for yourself and or being a good father or being a good husband and stuff. So it's rectifying those two forces is challenging.
I found that maybe the best way to put it for me is that I have found myself running the risk of manufacturing it.
Yeah.
Not deliberately manufacturing it.
Yeah.
But maybe finding myself in a place where I'm happy, but then I need to create something, and then I find that I'm kind of blue, or I'm starting to feel that old familiar funk.
Yeah.
And then in the last 10 years, when that has come up for me, I've gone, am I just doing this because I need to be in that place? Because that's fucked up.
Yeah.
Because my life is happy.
Yeah.
And it really shouldn't require anything but just talent and inspiration.
Yeah. I mean, I think, look, it's not one of the people who I admire the most as well is, and I've met him a few times. I know him. I think, even though we've admired each other from afar for many years, is Randy Newman, and I love how his approach is so clinical.
Yeah,
none of his songs are about his life. It's all constructs. It's all just him getting down and creating, whatever. It's like very. I mean, I'm sure he feels stuff, but it seems somewhat divorced to like who he is as an artist.
Right. His songs, his immense and brilliant catalog is not really a window into who he is.
Yeah, and I think that's fascinating, and I kind of wish I'd known that earlier.
Yeah,
because when I started out, it was there had to be this confessional thing, because that's what my parents did, and look, that's the road that I chose, and I don't think I can really get off that road too much, but learning that Randy Newman treated it in that clinical way was very good for not getting clinical depression. Yeah. Who is your dream duet partner, alive or dead? Oh God. Well, no, I mean, I'd want to sing with Judy Garland, of course. I still think she's, she to me is the greatest singer that ever lived.
She's incredible.
Yeah. So,
Incredible.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Barbara?
I admire Barbara, and I would love to. Actually, I'd love to sing with her. It would be a great honor. No. There's no disputing her magnificence.
But Judy Garland is like your vocal hero.
Judy's my vocal hero, and interestingly, I mean, Judy's my vocal hero. I relate to her more. I actually think that Peggy Lee was a better singer.
Peggy Lee was such a badass.
Yeah, and just in terms of her control and like the way she really, held her voice in check. You know
who else from that era I think was criminally underrated was Julie London.
She's great. I love Julie London.
And gorgeous.
Yeah, amazing.
What was the first album you ever bought with your own money?
It was Men Without Hats.
No way.
Yeah. Safety Dance.
Safety Dance.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and they're from Montreal.
I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, they're from Montreal, so it was very exciting.
Wow. And first concert you ever saw?
With Cyndi Lauper. Girls Just Want to Have Fun, which is great because she is one of the great singers of all time.
Great singer.
One of the top.
Great singer.
And I got to sing with her recently on her tour, and it was just such an amazing circle of, because I remember so distinctly being at her show.
Yeah.
And opening at that time were the Bangles, and now Susanna Hoffs is a really good friend. So it's kind of fun how it's.
She's awesome.
Yeah, no, she's incredible.
She and I did a show together years ago. We did a couple shows in a row, and they had her opening for me at some outdoor venue on a tour.
Yeah.
And I was really excited to meet her, and her tour bus broke down on the way to the first gig. So at a certain point, we just had to just go and do the show. And I said something about, Susanna, she didn't just blow us off here.
Yeah.
I think it was the Mountain Winery or something, one of those outdoor venues.
Yeah.
And the audience was great and everybody was cool. And I felt so bad for her, but my sarcasm took over. And so I saw her, she came to the side, like she was just sort of waving because it was too late to do anything, she couldn't set up or anything. Yeah. But I made her come out. I said, Susanna's here. She's just going to come out and say hi. And so she came out and she gave me a hug. And right in front of the audience, I went, Susanna, it's good to see you. Can I get you anything? Like a watch? And she just looked at me like, you asshole. But we did a few shows together and she was so lovely.
Yeah, no, she's great. I had a similar thing like that with Sarah Bareilles where, because I did this duet with her. I don't know if you've seen that. We did this one, She Used to Be Mine, that song.
Oh, yeah.
Wrote. We did a duet.
From Waitress.
You should check it out. It's on, we did it
I
for
will.
PBS.
I know Sarah and I've written with her and I love her.
And it kind of had a thing for a moment. It was pretty great for me and for us. And she's
an incredible singer.
Yeah, no, amazing singer.
One of my favorite singers on the planet.
We'll check out our duet of it on PBS. Anyways, but I had spent, a couple of days really learning the song and I created this harmony that was just unearthly, in terms of its range.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew that it had to be that way, and it was at the end of the show, and I've been practicing all day, and I was super nervous. It was at the Kennedy Center. It was being filmed. It was the whole thing, and back before it was manhandled, and so then I got on stage. Finally, it was the end of the night, and she's like, Rufus Wainwright, and we're about to start, and then right before we start, she goes, "Don't fuck it up." And I was like,
but it probably was good.
And it was good because it kind of it totally jabbed me.
Yeah.
And I had no choice but to not fuck it up.
I met her, became friendly with her, and maybe like a dozen years ago, 13 years ago, something like that. I was still living in Chicago.
Yeah.
And I had a studio at my house, and I was doing a lot of writing and producing there and stuff. And she came to spend the weekend with me in Chicago. And we wrote a couple of songs together just to kind of see what would happen. Nothing really, we wrote one really, really beautiful song.
Yeah.
But we just ended up having so much fun.
Yeah.
And we went to dinner that night. And at the dinner, we were just talking. We hadn't spent a lot of time together at this point. But I said, I asked her, like, who were your heroes and who do you love? Who do you idolize? And she goes, oh, that's an easy one, Olivia Newton-John. I'm obsessed with, like, she's my favorite. I worship her.
Wow.
I'd known Olivia since I was 19 years old.
Wow.
So as Sarah's ordering, I text Olivia Newton-John.
Wow.
And I go, and I'm thinking, oh, this would be cool to get her to send a video or something. So I text her and I go, hey, how are you? Where are you these days? And she goes, this is so weird. I was going to text you. I'm coming to Chicago tomorrow, but I'm only there for the night. I was going to see, I know you're probably busy, but maybe we could get together.
Right.
So I went, hold dinner for me. We'll have dinner. So I say to Sarah, after we work in the studio tomorrow, I want to take you to this really cool restaurant, but it's a little bit of a drive.
Yeah.
So anyway, I take Sarah to this restaurant, and as we're waiting at the host stand, Olivia walks up. And Sarah sees her and realizes that this is all...
Yeah.
And Sarah ran into the coat room and started crying.
Oh, God, that's so
And finally
sweet.
composed herself and came back out, and we had this beautiful dinner.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
And from that point on, Sarah and Olivia would text each other. And,
Oh, that's amazing.
And so
That's
when
wonderful.
Olivia passed, which was so heartbreaking,
Yeah.
I got the sweetest text from Sarah saying, I can't thank you enough for making that happen.
That's amazing. Yeah, well, for me, Xanadu was big.
Yeah.
That was a big deal.
Dude, I hadn't seen Xanadu, but I loved this duet with Cliff Richard called Suddenly.
Yeah.
You know that song?
Yeah.
And then when I became friendly with Olivia, several years after the movie came out, she invited me to her house and made me dinner. I was 19 or 20 years old.
Yeah.
And somehow Xanadu came up, and I mentioned that I love that song so much. And I said, I've actually never seen the movie. And she goes, do you want to see it?
Yeah.
And I said, what do you mean? She goes, I've got a tape of it.
Yeah.
And I got to sit and watch Xanadu with Olivia Newton-John sitting there.
Oh my God.
Crazy.
Oh my God.
Which leads me to
amazing.
one of my favorite questions to ask people, because you've mentioned, well, the Stevie Nicks thing kind of throws me a little bit, but when it comes to some of the other people you've mentioned, do you feel that you have manifested people into your life, people you've really admired? Because I bet that the ratio of people you've really admired coming into your path is high.
Yeah, I mean, for me, one of the big ones was Burt Bacharach.
Same here.
Yeah, I was such a huge fan for so long,
and I adored him.
And then when I had the opportunity to work with him and hang out with him,
Dude, I did the same. I manifested him too.
Yeah, I manifested Burt Bacharach, which is, I'm sure he's still being manifested.
He sat in here with me.
Yeah, so that was a big one. The one who, and this is more on a personal level, not so much artistically, but certainly, in terms of enjoying LA and having fun here and really, having some incredible stories to tell was Carrie Fisher.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, when she manifesting Princess Leia, when we became good friends, that was a trip and a half. But artistically, I'm trying to think of other, Leonard was definitely in there too, unbeknownst to me, because I later then, really dug into his work and realized, oh my God, he is who he says he is.
Your cover is, it's just iconic.
But Burt Bacharach was really important.
I really put it out there that I really wanted to work with him, and I found his manager, Sue Main, and she said, well, let me talk to Burt. And this was like 4 years before he passed, something like that. So he's 90 at that point. She said, I talked to Burt. He would love to write with you, but I'm not sure when, because he's in Europe on tour, and then he's doing a Broadway show. And this is when he was 90 fucking years old.
I know.
So I waited 6 months, 8 months. Finally, I get this email. Hey, would you like to come? Are you free next week?
Yeah.
So the day before I go to his house to get together, he calls me and said, hey, Richard, I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow, but do you have a lyric you can send over? And I was like, oh shit. Because I always write music first.
Yeah.
And I write lyrics to music. So I went, oh, Bert, I thought that what we would do is we'd get together and we could write a tune together, the melody, and then I'll take it and write lyrics. And there's a pause. And he goes, I don't need any help writing music. Quote. And I swear to God, Rufus, I went like this. I went, of course you don't. And then I said, can you give me an hour?
Yeah.
And I don't do this. I don't write that way. So I was completely panicked, but I thought, I can't blow this.
Yeah.
So I went into a room, I closed the door, and I wrote a love letter to Daisy. I just wrote I wrote lines about how, I met Daisy later in life.
Yeah.
We realized that we had been in the same room over the years and never met. And I feel so grateful that the world put us finally together, and that we're always talking about how we wish we'd had more time. When we met, I was turning 50, and
right.
And so I kind of wrote a sense of that, and I sent it over to him, and he called me and he went, "Oh, I like this. See it too."
Yeah.
And when I walked up to his door, he came to the door and he barely said hello. He goes, "Come to the piano. I got something." And we wrote several songs, but the first song we wrote, this song called Always, he just sat down and played it from my lyric. And it was all I could do to weep.
Wow.
And then becoming close to him.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing we're talking about, like you and Carrie Fisher. And it's when, I still have all my voicemails from Bert.
Yeah.
And I hear him saying, "Love you." And, so we're lucky. We're lucky guys.
We are very lucky. Yes.
I close every one of these with a gift.
Oh. Okay.
Now, some people are not into vinyl. It doesn't matter. I try to be thoughtful about it. Sometimes I go through I've hardly thrown any vinyl out of from my childhood.
Yeah.
But with you, I thought about it and I thought about it. And so I just thought, I think he would like this. Can you hand me this? I had to find this on eBay, but I don't know if you have this. But
wonderful.
I thought you might love that.
This is amazing. What's amazing is that I was hanging out with this friend of mine, Brett, who's also known as Leland. He writes a lot with Troye Sivan. And he's more in the pop world.
I love Troye Sivan.
But I went to his house and he was playing. Oh, this is in English though. This I haven't heard.
Mm-hmm.
But he was playing an Edith Piaf record, and it's called Les Trois Cloches, but here I guess it's the Three Bells. The last song on here, and it was playing on a record player, and I was like, that was my mother's favorite song, it was so great to hear it again. So my mother's following me.
Yeah,
as usual.
It's a sign. Well, cheers.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for spending some time.
Wonderful.
And I can't wait to come and see
wonderful.
You do your thing.
Yes. No, definitely. Great.
Thanks, buddy.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you.